Welcome to Creative Tien channel. Today we are continuing our cable scarf. If you haven't seen the part 1, you can check it from the link in the corner of the screen or the descriptions below. A little bit of a review for the part 1. We did E-wrap cast on and pick out the stitches to reform and drop the stitch and latch up for reforming the purl stitch, making a ribbon for the beginning and on both sides. And we learn to cross cable every 16 rows by using the transferring tools. And you just continue repeating the pattern every 16 rows, reform the stitches, and make a cable crossing until the length you like. So you can see the cable edging is reversible. It looks almost the same on both front and back sides. And the secret of the reversible cable is the ribbon. You can do the same with hand knitting. If you need a few rows of the ribbon and cross those ribbon stitches, it looks like it's reversible. And next we want to know how to fix mistakes. Mistakes happens a lot in machine knitting when you're not paying attention or when you're getting tired. And the easiest way is to rip back a whole row and then start over. Because if you hand knit it, the tension will not be the same. And the ripping back is very easy on the machine. You can just lift up the yarn gently and the stitch will pop out of the needle. And you do it slowly, one needle at a time. Just lift up the yarn and gently pull toward you, and then you can move your carriage to the other side and thread the yarn and start to knit the row again. To finish up the scarf, after the last cable crossing, we can knit 8 rows and then reform those 8 rows. After we did the 1 by 1 ribbon reforming, we don't have to do a cable crossing now because we want to match the beginning of the scarf. So we just continue knitting another 8 rows and that will be our ending of the scarf. And we'll reform the ribbon stitch on the edge, on both sides and the center. After the last 8 rows are knitted, we have to select the stitches we want to reform, and it should be the same as the first few rows of the scarf. So you can take a look at the first few rows. That should be the 1 by 1 ribbon for the first and the last 8 stitches, and the 2 by 1 ribbon in the center of the scarf. And we can start reforming the center stitches so you can see the difference of the 8 row. If you start from the edge stitches, it's harder to tell where is the end of the 8 rows. Or you can count the 8 stitches when you drop off 1 by 1, so you don't go over that. After all the ribbons are reformed, we can start to bind off. And you can bind off any way you want. Here I'm using a sewing bind off. You will need a big-eyed needle and just cut off the yarn about 3 times the width of your project. And then thread the needle and we can start. And we can pull out all the needles first to the D position or the holding position. This will be easier for you to bind off without dropping stitches. And the first stitch, we can start from the front to the back, so it secures the first stitch. And then we are just going to repeat 2 stitch forward, 1 stitch back, 2 stitch forward, 1 stitch back. And then we will start 2 stitch forward, so that will be the third stitch. Third stitch, we thread it from the back to the front, and then we'll go back from front to the back on the second stitch. And we're just repeating the same. After you work on the second stitch, we go 2 stitch forward again, so that will be the fourth stitch. Thread it from the back to the front on the fourth stitch, and then front to the back on the third stitch. That's 1 stitch back. And we just keep repeating 2 stitches forward to the front and then 1 stitch back to the back until the end. The only thing is not to get tangled. You see it gets tangled easily. Try to keep all the yarns below the needle so it doesn't get tangled. We do the same to the end, so the last 2 stitch we go to the front and 1 stitch back to the end, and then 2 stitch forward to the front. That will be the last stitch, and then 1 stitch back to the back side. And then for the last stitch, we like to thread it one more time so the stitch is more secure. And that's it. All we have to do is take it off the needle and steam it or block it, and then you are done. A variation of this scarf is to make it into an infinity scarf. The only difference is you can cast on with waste yarn, so you have live stitches. And when you cast off, you can put the beginning stitches back to the needle and bind off the same way. Or you can take the whole project off the machine and knit it by hand using the Kitchener stitch or the 3 needle bind off to finish the loop. I hope you like this project, and thank you for watching. See you next time.